welcome, Diane. It's great to have you here. Thank you for your time this afternoon. Really appreciate it. Diane has been the Director of the Office for Seniors to Tari Kaumātua since October 2016. Diane and her team are based in the Ministry of Social Development in Wellington. Their job is to support the Minister for Seniors to advocate for the issues and interests of older people. Their work includes leading the implementation of the National Strategy for our Ageing Population, Better Later Life. Diane's career has included 30 years working in local government. Diane has a Bachelor of Social Sciences from Waikato University, a Bachelor of Town Planning from Auckland University, and a Master Business Administration from Massey University. She is also a Justice of the Peace and very busy by the sounds of it. Diane, it's a pleasure to have you along this afternoon. We're really looking forward to your presentation. The virtual floor is all yours.
Okay, kia ora koutou, and thank you, Stephen, for your invitation. It's great to be able to talk with you and your members this afternoon. So I've got a PowerPoint presentation, which hopefully all going well, I will share. There we go.
That's great, working fine.
Okay, all right. So Stephen's asked me to talk a little bit about myself. I've got to say that's one of my least favourite topics, to talk a bit about our office and what we do, our strategy, and some of the key projects that we're involved in. Stephen, if I'm looking like I'm going over time, please just stop me. And, you know, because for me, it's always interesting to hear the questions.
Sure.
Okay, so before I go to what the office does, well, Stephen's given you a bit of an introduction about my work and I guess my academic history and my career to date. I've got to say, it was interesting. I initially applied for this job so that I could get back closer to my family who all live in the North Island, and probably at the time I knew no more about older people than what most people know. We have parents and grandparents, so it was certainly a very steep learning for me, but it's a job that I'm very passionate about, and I've really enjoyed the opportunities that I've been provided in this role to to help address some of the issues of older people. And I've got to say, it seems like it will be a job without end, because most of the things that the government does has an impact on older people, and it never ceases to amaze me the lack of insight that many people have around how policy decisions or any kind of decisions might impact on older people. So me and my team spend a lot of time trying to influence changes there. In terms of myself, in addition to my career, I've obviously a daughter. I'm a mother. I've got two grown-up sons. I've got 2 grandchildren, one of whom turned 5 and starts school today. They certainly are an important part of my life, and I guess what keeps me grounded in the real world on a day-to-day basis. Outside work, my interests are probably pretty kind of mainstream. I enjoy cooking, gardening, reading, and in COVID I took up the opportunity to start knitting again, and I particularly like knitting for little people, mainly because it doesn't take as long as knitting for adults. So yeah, and I lead a bit of a commuting lifestyle, because I have continued to live in Whakatāne since I moved to my job in Canterbury in 2011. So I've got to know the airlines quite well over that time. So that's probably all I want to say about myself. But if anyone's got any questions at the end, feel free to ask, and I'll let you know whether I'll answer or not. So moving on to the presentation. Just got to Oh yeah, here we go. I'm just going to hide myself as I see the screen. So the Office for Seniors is the primary advisor to the government on issues affecting older people. As Stephen said, we're located in the Ministry of Social Development. We have a small team, but it has increased over the time I've been here. We're now number 12, and we're all working hard to improve the lives of older people across New Zealand. We have 2 staff whose primary jobs are related to communications, which includes everything from a monthly stakeholder newsletter to social media to our website. We have 1 staff member whose primary work is around elder abuse and is largely funded through other agencies. I've got 1 staff member leading the Age-Friendly Cities and Communities program, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And then the rest of us are involved in providing advice and sharing information and resources with government, local government, community organisations. So, and although we're a small team, you know, we've all got big hearts and work very hard to try and make a difference. So probably all of you know this, but it never hurts to remind ourselves that we're actually moving to a society that has an ageing population. And this means that there will be a far bigger portion of the population that are over 65, rising to over 20%. And I think we're already around the stage where there are more people over 65 than there are under 14. So people are living longer, and combined with lower birth rates means that there are more older people in our populations. One of the largest growing portion of the population is the over 85s, which is testament to health and welfare, you know, that we are living longer and we're living a much healthier life than we used to. The other thing about our ageing population is that we're much more diverse probably than you know, when you and I were growing up. So we have an increasing you know, group of older Māori and Pacific peoples. They're still not living as long as a European woman, for example, but their lifespan is increasing, but there still needs to be further impetus given to health and well-being for those population groups. We've also, through immigration policies, got a lot more Asian and other ethnicities. I think there's something like 200 different ethnicities living in New Zealand. And for older people, what it means is a lot that have come here in later life do not have a good command of English, or it might be a second language. So we need to be mindful of that in all the work that we do. One of the slides that I like to talk about is that we really need to change the conversation about older people. It's important from my perspective that older people are not just viewed as being an increasing cost to society, but are valued for their ongoing contributions too. And on the slide, you'll see, you know, information about how much New Zealand super costs. These are 2021 figures, basically because they align with a study that we've done about the value of the contribution that older people make to our society. So over 25% of older people continue in paid work. And, you know, both as a superannuant and as workers, we continue to pay tax. And then on top of that, older people make a significant contribution through unpaid work. And, you know, this might be caring for, you know, older or younger family members, keeping many of the organisations that exist in our society, you know, running and operating effectively. So older people should not be seen as a burden, and we need to start, you know, we need to be able to talk more positively about the contribution that everybody makes to our society, including older people. So turning to our strategy, Better Later Life, Oranga Kaumātua, was released by the then Minister in 2019 and was the first time that the strategy had been reviewed since 2001. So the other one had got quite dated. We undertook quite a lot of consultation over a period of 18 months to talk to people about what was important to them and what they wanted to see in the strategy. There are 5 key areas for action. They include the right to achieving financial security and being able to participate in a working sense in the economy if you want to. Having access to health and social services when you need them. Having a diverse range of housing choices and options for older people. Enhancing opportunities for participation and connection. So this is everything from respecting the right of older people to make decisions to dealing to the terrible impacts of elder abuse to lifelong learning. So it covers a whole range of things. And then finally, making environments accessible. And that's not just about footpaths and houses, but it's about older people being able to fully participate in society in an everyday sense. We've also put together a range of indicators to measure how we're going in terms of giving effect to the outcome areas in the strategy. And all that information is available on our website. In 2021, we developed, the next minister then launched the first action plan. And in this action plan, we focused down on a small range of government priorities and commitments to deliver on the strategy over a 3-year period. It was really developed sort of coming out the other end of COVID, which had a profound and lasting impact on older people. Many who lost their jobs, struggled with increasing costs of renting, or faced challenges of social isolation. So the 3 priorities became employment, housing, and digital inclusion. With the issues of employment and housing, we actually focus on people aged 50 and over, as the ramifications of not owning a home or having a stable housing situation seriously compromises the quality of life of older people. Much of our saving for later life happens after 50, and this is often also the period when a job loss can have the greatest impact. A displaced worker over the age of 50 is 11% less likely to find a job within 5 years. And those that are fortunate to find new jobs will see their earnings drop on average by 25%. Older workers were also disproportionately impacted by COVID, particularly around, some of the initial messaging around staying at home. And I know it impacted hugely on the volunteer sector as well. So turning to employment, as I said earlier, we know that 1 in 4 people over 65 are in paid employment. So our focus in the employment action is supporting older workers to be able to use their skills and experience and enabling employers to build a resilient and multi-generational workforce. So a lot of the work that we're doing in this is foundational. So actually seeking further information around details on those who are continuing to learn and train, simply because often older people are not given that opportunity. We've also, and I'll speak to this a little bit later, piloting a scheme for those with business ideas and wanting to establish business. And we're just putting the finishing touches to some research on age discrimination in the workplace. We're also working with the Public Service Commission, as they lead good practice, good employment practice in the across the public sector, so they can lead by example, or at least the public sector could lead by example. So the next area for action is housing, and as I said earlier, it has such a huge impact on our well-being in our later life. Older people can face a range of housing issues, which include affordability, accessibility, quality, location, insecurity of tenure, homelessness, and other challenges, such as being able to make use of some of the equity that we have if we're fortunate to own our own homes. The home ownership rate for older people is going down, and increasingly people are reaching the age of entitlement for New Zealand super, still having to pay a mortgage. Either renting or paying a mortgage and relying 100% on New Zealand super is a very difficult place for people to be in terms of being able to maintain any form of adequate life. Last year, there were approximately 51,000 older people getting the accommodation supplement in addition to New Zealand super. And one of the issues with getting the accommodation supplement is that the levels of that supplement haven't been reviewed for some time and really have not kept pace with inflation and increased rentals. Some of the things that we have been doing in the housing space, I'll speak about one of our pilot projects a little later on, but we've also recently published age-friendly guidelines for local authorities and developers to help them consider the issues and needs of older people in planning and development programs. And I also think that it's a good resource for older people who want to be able to advocate for with their local councils for their communities. There's a great some toolkits online, which we're hoping to also have better resources on our website. My Home, My Choices gives people some good options around whether to stay in their current home or what their other options might be in terms of future living. So if you Google My Home, My Choices, I'm sure you'll find the kit. There's also one for rentals as well. The other action area is digital inclusion, and I don't need to tell you what's happened in the digital space. Cheques have disappeared. COVID certainly increased our reliance on technology, and there haven't been the the alternatives available to people who have not had the ability to learn how to be online, are not able to be online, or cannot afford to be online. So we are working across a number of areas, but one of our notable activities has been the delivery of digital inclusion training as free courses for those who want or are in a position to learn how to be online. And those courses have run for the last 3 years, and we've got another 3 years of funding for those programs as well. However, I think there's a lot of work that government needs to do in terms of making services available to older people. So I've kind of talked a little bit about the fact that we're running a number of projects. So it says projects funded in budget 22 on the headline. Yes, the money that we got was made available in last year's budget, and that has enabled us to start 2 new pilot programs, senior entrepreneurship and home sharing, and to continue with the digital literacy training. So the senior entrepreneurship or senior enterprise pilot program is, we've engaged 5 different providers across the country to work with people who have their own business idea and help them actually investigate whether it is a good idea or not, and support them with tools and resources in being able to set up their own businesses. This is a program designed specifically for older people. So many of the entrepreneurship kind of programs do not have older people in mind. And it's quite surprising, really, because I think it's over 30% of old businesses are owned by older people. So it's a rich area and an opportunity for people who are perhaps have either got an idea or are frustrated with the job market. The Home Share pilot program is something that where Age Concern Auckland won the tender to initiate this program, and basically this is where an older person is willing to share their, offer a room with a younger person, and it might be a younger older person, or it might be somebody who is, for example, doing a master's or a PhD at university in exchange for a small amount of money or so many hours a week of companionship, company, doing chores. It is not designed to be the home, proxy for home and community support services. So if an older person is entitled to those, then they're still delivered. This is more about companionship in your home. And it's a program that is successfully run overseas in a number of countries. But yeah, this will be a formal trial in New Zealand, and through it we will be putting the infrastructure in place to minimise, to which we would hope might be then available to other places around the country who are thinking of setting up such a scheme. Other money in last year's budget was around prevention for elder abuse. This goes on top of, in the time that I've been in the office, funding for elder abuse has increased, for elder abuse services has increased annually from $3 million to around about $12 million. So these are intervention services. A further $6.3 million has now been allocated to look at new approaches to prevent elder abuse. So it's really, from my perspective, very pleasing to see that there's a significant amount of money now going into an issue that really adversely impacts on the health and well-being of older people. The Super Gold Card, there continues to be investment in providing better access to discounts and concessions. A couple of years ago, an app was launched, and a whole new website was built to better explain and give people access to information about the Super Gold discounts. And a lot of people, particularly those that don't live in cities like yourselves, will say, well, it's not worth it because we don't have public transport. Actually, if you are buying things, then there are real opportunities to get discounts for a whole range of things. Last year, the Aged Care Commissioner, first Aged Care Commissioner, was appointed. She resides in the office of the Health and Disability Commissioner, but is appointed through the Minister for Seniors, and her role is to have oversight over the whole aged care sector. So it's not just about those living in aged residential care, but also those receiving home and community supports, and the other elements that make up the aged care sector. So I just want to talk a little bit about our age-friendly programs. So in 2018, our office signed up to for New Zealand to be part of the World Health Organization's Age-Friendly Cities and Communities program, and we lead the promotion of this program throughout New Zealand. We now have about 28 councils across the country involved in the program, including in the Wellington region, Wellington City and Kapiti Coast district councils. And to support that, we have information and resources on our website. We have the council network to support councils that are interested. And every year we run a small grants round and have now funded, since it's been started, over 40 projects around the country that are everything from developing plans to small local initiatives that make a difference in people's lives. I also like to think of the age-friendly program as a way that empowers older people to make a difference in their own community. So it's a program designed with older people in mind, being able to lead change in their local communities. To supplement the program, we've also developed an age-friendly business guide to encourage businesses to become age-friendly. And I spoke earlier about the urban guide. As you can see from the slide, the icons around the outside, housing, social participation, transportation, outdoor spaces and buildings, etc., are all the elements that go up to make an age-friendly city or community. And as communities work, they might pick, a couple of areas to work on, or, several, depending on their capacity or resources. It's a program that really can be driven at people's own rates. So some of the other things that we do around elder abuse, I've spoken a little bit about that. We have been successful in securing some funding from what used to be called the joint venture, which is now named Te Puna Ao Nui, and is essentially a collaboration of 10 government agencies who are tasked by the government to address the issue of family violence and sexual violence, and elder abuse forms part of that definition under the legislation that I think was passed in about 2018 or 19. Don't hold me to count on that one. And what we're trying to do is raise awareness in a national sense by building networks locally around elder abuse and the issues. So really trying to give communities a voice. We've also, through MSD, got some funding for some specific prevention initiatives across the country, 11 last year, and we've received further funding for 7 of those initiatives to be able to continue this year. And there are a very diverse range of initiatives. One was led by, an example was led by Aotearoa Community Law, who were working within their communities to raise awareness of elder abuse, but they're also advocating and for people to have their own enduring powers of attorney, and they were able, as part of this project, to get quite a group of people who needed them to have an EPA. There was another initiative in the Waikato that looked at the rainbow community and elder abuse and older people. So over and above raising awareness and understanding of elder abuse, we're also dealing with government priorities such as climate change and what that means for older people, and particularly as we're looking at what we will need to do and change in the future, the impacts on older people. It's not only financial impacts, but older people are are severely impacted by heat and the extremes of temperature, because the body just can't withstand the changes as we can when we're younger. We also contributed to the COVID response and recovery. So there are many things going on across government that we're contributing to. I always say that information is power, and so one of the ways that we help empower people is through the provision of information through a bi-monthly newsletter. And if you don't get that newsletter, if you're receiving New Zealand Super and don't get that newsletter at the moment, it may be because the Ministry of Social Development doesn't have your email address. So you can update your email details through My MSD or by phoning the 0800 number. We also have a range of information on our website, and we also use social media channels to promote information on a daily basis. The Super Gold card I've talked about. If you have a smartphone, please download the app. It is really good. It helps identify businesses offering discounts in the area that you might be shopping in, or you can check out if you're going somewhere who's offering discounts for things that you might want to buy. So I'd certainly encourage you to look on that. So I'm not quite sure how long I've been talking for, but that's brought me to the end of my presentation, and I'm available for questions now, Stephen.
That's just about perfect. Thank you. Right on half an hour. Let me just add my spotlight there. Great. Thank you. That was a great insight into the Office for Seniors, and also a little bit about your story as well. Thank you for that, Diane. There's quite a few questions that are popping up, which is great. Let me just see if I can bring these up here to right, here we go. There's some good questions here. Okay. So Mick has asked, is there a case for government to invest in retirement homes as the demand is likely to increase?
Well, I think if he's talking about retirement villages, then there's a large corporate sector that are building retirement homes. I think they've got 15% of people over, 80 live in a retirement village, which equates to around about 50,000 people. But most people still actually live in the community. So there's about 900,000 people over 65 at the moment. So there's, say 50,000 living in retirement villages and another 35,000 living in aged residential care. The guide that I mentioned, and I'll get to the answer your question directly in a minute, but I did mention in my presentation a guide. I'm just trying to, that actually gives people choices, because not everybody wants to live in a retirement village. Many people want to continue to live in their own communities where they're, an intergenerational network. And I think, there needs to be more choice and more information about choices. I think, in answer to your question, I think the retirement village sector is currently keeping up with demand, and certainly ahead of demand. I think there are people who are kind of feel trapped in their current living situation and would like some choice in terms of being able to live in their own community. So I think that we need to work more on giving people choices. I think the key issue for retirement villages is, of course, many people can't afford to live in a retirement village because, if you can't, if you don't have the savings or your home's not at least equivalent to the value of moving into a retirement village, you're not going to be able to afford to move there. But a lot of that is around, people think, I think there's a bit of a misconception that people must go into a retirement village, whereas I think a lot of people are really living in communities very well. And perhaps what we need to talk about is the choice of housing available more broadly than whether or not there should be more opportunities to move into retirement village. So I hope that bit of a long-winded answer answers your question.
All right, thanks, Mick. I've got a question here from Alan Royal. Over the years, your office has funded many programs to increase digital literacy in seniors. Who decides what seniors need to be taught in these programs? What evidence do you have that the programs have improved digital literacy in seniors?
Okay, good question, Alan, and nice to hear from you. So what we've developed, we have a pre-assessment tool and a post-assessment. So these are self-assessments, and everyone that has participated in the courses that we've provided completes those assessments. So they have all reported, a variety of ranges of increased level of learning and understanding over the time. In terms of who's chosen to go in those courses, some are specifically designed. So this time around, we've gone out specifically to Māori, Pacific and ethnic related communities, but the Digital Inclusion Alliance Aotearoa have a significant amount of funding to deliver digital literacy training, and people can put their names to find out where those courses are held, and it's a first in, first served kind of basis. In terms of looking to the future, we do have funding to carry out a proper evaluation of how successful the courses are, Alan, and those will be very interesting. That evaluation will be very interesting to see. But we certainly continue, the providers that we've worked with continue to fine-tune their courses to address the needs of older learners.
Okay, thank you, Alan, for that question. The next question is from Anne. You touched on Gold Card and using public transport and mentioned that many areas have poor access to public transport. Is there anything on your planned activities to look to providing greater subsidies for other transport options where public transport isn't meeting needs? These are tough questions.
That's a tough question, and I would say that the office is not specifically looking at increasing subsidies itself. That would be more of a matter for transport, Ministry of Transport and the NZTA, Whakatāne. But what we have funded that has been quite successful, for example, is Nelson and Tasman have set up their own rural transport network. So there are communities addressing those issues within their own communities, and there will be a range of options available around the country. So I think there is also room for communities to work to address their needs, particularly in rural areas where there will never be an extensive public transport network.
Okay, a question from Kerry. Should the Super Gold Card have photo ID to avoid misuse?
Good question. This comes up from time to time. You can get a photo ID on it if you choose. If it became a situation where every gold card was issued with a photo ID on it as at times of issue, that would make it a very expensive card to issue. So at the moment you can go along to, I think, the AA and get a photo put on, but that's your choice. But overall, we've heard very little stories about misuse of the card. So there are no plans at the moment.
Okay. Thanks, Kerry, for that question. There's another question about Super Gold card, I think, further on down. But Alistair's asking around the Citizens Advice Bureau, and obviously it's been in the news a little bit lately with funding, missing out on some funding there. Is there any thought of entrenching the Citizens Advice Bureau, making it centrally funded, regionally delivered, so that the future can be secured?
Well, that's a great thought. Sorry, it's not something that's within my I guess my sphere of influence, but I would agree with your comments. I think, and personally, when I'm hearing about issues of people who are digitally excluded, and the Citizen Advice Bureau themselves have done work on this. A simple answer, and I might be being a bit simplistic here, is why don't the government agencies who are all rushing to go online, share some funding with the Citizens Advice Bureau so that they are meeting their commitment to enabling people to access services even if they can't go online. So I guess what I'm saying is I would agree with you, and certainly, if there's an opportunity for us to influence any change in government policy, we'll certainly be, keeping that in mind.
Okay, we'll take a couple more questions. We've got a couple here. Kate has asked, I am 62. This is a good question. I'm 62 and in a few years I will transition to 65. I have no idea what I need to set up, what's involved in the change, the superannuation, and I need advice. Is there a helpline for seniors?
Well, the Ministry of Social Development does have the seniors line, but that relates to those who are coming on to New Zealand Super. I guess in a simple sense, you could go on and have a look at the website about all the information about getting New Zealand Super, etc. I do know that last year we funded, as part of our age-friendly program, we funded an initiative in Marlborough where they are running courses in their local community about, for want of a better word, transitioning to, to New Zealand Super or retirement, however you'd like to, describe it. I remember back in the day, there used to be lots of courses available, but, I think it's a real gap at the moment. And I'm not sure where to advise you to go, but I would say start on your website, on the Ministry of Social Development Work and Income website that contains a lot of information, and then perhaps see if there's local organisations in your community. I mean, Age Concern probably a good one to help for some things. We have
a book called Where From Here, which we distribute. It's a nationwide book. There's a Wellington version. We're happy to give that out if you want some more information, that book can be quite helpful. Just give Age Concern a call and we'll send one out to you. The last question's quite long here from Diana. She's talking about the difference between, in terms of superannuation, singles and couples, and the gap between singles and couples is widening. Is there any work being done around that? She talks about costs. The costs are the same for single or couple in terms of insurance rates, power, etc. Well, I suppose the power and that will be slightly more, but when there's a percentage cost of living increase, the increase for couples is greater as the percentage increases on a bigger amount. And so she's saying the gap between singles and couples is widening. Is there any work being done on that, do you know of, in the superannuation?
Not that I know of, but I do know that it's an issue that does come up regularly. Whether you're a couple and think you should get 2 single rates, or whether you're a single and think you should get more.
very complex situation, and I think a lot of the dialogue around superannuation.
Yeah, but I would encourage people, you know, if they are having trouble and, you know, relying on a little, you know, nothing other than New Zealand Super or just a little bit more, to actually check whether there are any things, other forms of supplementary assistance that you might be entitled to. And there is an online checking tool available, so you can, you know, you can go online and check, you know, if you want to do so in the privacy of your own home, or else you can ring the, you know, the 0800 number for seniors helpline. So, you know, I do know that a lot of people, older people, are shy about coming forward and you know, when they're having trouble in getting their entitlements, but they are just that, they're entitlements. So certainly, you know, if people are struggling, they should check that they're getting everything that they're entitled to.
Okay, thank you, Diane. You did very well. Those are some really tricky questions for a Monday afternoon. I'm just going to hand over as we wrap up to my colleague Kirsten Blyde. She's our social connection coordinator for Wellington and Porirua.
And thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. It's been a very informative afternoon, and I was particularly interested to hear that you've got a 5-year-old that's starting school on the first day of term. They'll be very excited about that, I'm sure. You're going to get a full rundown when you get home, I imagine. Yeah, so 25% of seniors are still working and contributing. It's pretty amazing, really. I think we come across a lot of discrimination, I guess, around older people. And if the community only knew that figure, they'd be probably blown away. So 25% of people. And the unpaid work, a lot of our volunteers actually are retired people, and they put a lot of effort into their communities. So I believe that figure of $14 to $15 billion that they contribute to our community. That's fantastic. And I just started, while you were talking, having a little look at my home, my choices. So I'm going to explore that a bit further and maybe promote that to, you know, some of the groups I work with. So thanks so much, Diane, for spending time with us. I hope we haven't kept you from something else, but it's been good to have you.
Oh, thank you very much, Kirsten. It's always a pleasure to be talking to the people that I am here to support. So thank you very much for the opportunity.